Hi, it's Tim Hagen from Progress Coaching, and welcome to another episode of Coaching Conversations. And I wanted to make you aware of something very cool that we're doing on a subscription basis, and we'll put a link in each one of our episodes. But every Wednesday, we're going to be doing what we call an audio podcast workshop. That workshop will be roughly about 14 to maybe 20 minutes per episode, with each month having a theme from a coaching model, using feedback strategically, to coaching self-awareness, and so on. So if you could, look in the body or in the content description of each episode, and you will see a link where you can join this subscription. These are literally 4 workshops every month, teaching specific strategies to address a particular area of workplace coaching, as it relates, again, to things like awareness, motivation, teamwork, and what have you. Here's the cool thing. It's only $10 per month, and each month you will get a handout that we will follow along with. So we also give you a tool for you to take notes as we go through each episode. We hope you'll check it out. The goal of feedback is to give it so someone receives it openly and professionally. Yet we can also add a little bit of strategy beyond the feedback by asking questions of clarification and action. For example, hearing that feedback, what goes through your mind and what could I do to assist you in the process to move forward successfully? Now that seems like a mouthful, but think about it. When you get feedback, what's your first reaction? Feedback typically is a trigger for people to feel emotional, to feel defensive. They go into a mode of, do I agree or disagree with this feedback? Meaning, will they put anything into action? Questions after feedback give people pause for thought, and it reframes their mind. It triggers their mind differently. So if you sit down with somebody and say, John, you've been late the last 3 days for work. This cannot happen anymore. Now, at that moment, this hypothetical employee, John's going to say what? Yeah, you're right. Or they're going to come up with reasons why someone is not being empathetic. Or maybe the boss doesn't understand. He has kids at home. He couldn't get them on the bus. And we go into an emotional state. Not everybody, but it typically triggers people because we leave feedback by itself. Now, if we were to say to John, you've been late the last 3 days. We cannot have this any more going further. Hearing that, what can we do to assist you going forward? What needs to change? What positive action steps are you going to put into place to embrace this feedback so we can continue to grow you as a future leader of this company? Now, the first set of feedback was a little bit bland, but I gave a couple different questions that you could ask afterwards. So think about that for a second. Wouldn't the second version or the second set of versions frame out John's mind more positively? Now, what if John were to say something like, to be honest with you, I'm really having problems. And I want to share with you a very quick story. One of my favorite stories of all time. We had a young guy who was literally this person and had 3 kids, was a single dad, and the supervisor found out that, good employee, always did his job, was working hard. And he said, honestly, they've changed the bus rules on me. I have nothing I can do. And literally, the team supervisor, who was a woman, goes, well, do you have any neighbors in your apartment building that could help you? He said, honestly, I don't know any neighbors. And she said, well, do you see other kids getting on the bus? He said, yeah. He said, put out a sign. Talk to some of your neighbors. Get to know them. Now, this doesn't put men in a favorable light, but he said, I never thought of that. Problem solved. He's still employed at that company. Now, if the company just simply gave him feedback and said, this is our policy and procedure, and it cuts people off from conversation, guess what happens? We don't learn of solutions. So when giving feedback, make sure you are also asking questions of clarification. Help me understand. Action questions. What are you going to do successfully going forward? What are you going to do to embrace this feedback successfully? What are the positive steps you're going to put into action so we can mitigate this going forward? What that does is it moves them off that platform of emotional interpretation. Now, let's be candid. A lot of times when we give people feedback, they go into a state of emotional reaction. They go into a state of agree or disagree. Now, we may not want to agree with this as leaders, but many times people accept or discount our feedback based on their agreement or disagreement. even if we have the slightest set of feedback wrong, people say, but that's not true. He doesn't really understand the whole story. Can you hear people like that right now? So remember, when we ask questions after feedback, we're getting them off the emotional interpretation platform and successfully moving them forward. Thank you for listening to another episode of Coaching Conversations by Tim Hagen and Progress Coaching. Now, our company is always coming out with new and innovative solutions to help leaders coach their employees. And recently, we just created a new service called Coach to You, where leaders can pick and choose topics and assign 7 to 21-day programs for employees to learn and, more importantly, apply actions and then reflect and share what they're going to do going forward as a result of the learning. It's called Coach to You. We're literally bringing coaching to your employees. If you're intrigued, we'll have a link in each one of our episodes where you can get more information. And again, thank you so much for listening to another episode.